Well, good early morning, Carly and Todd. If you thought House Democrats were going to fly into Washington and rubber stamp this plan to reopen the government, think again. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says he still wants those Obamacare subsidies added to this bill.
House Democrats will strongly oppose any legislation that does not decisively address the Republican health care crisis. We want to reopen the government. We'll continue to stand by our hardworking federal employees and civil servants, but we have a responsibility to make sure that we extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits.
That's what Chuck Schumer wanted, of course, in a plan that Jeffries opposed just last month, a one-year extension of the subsidies. But many Democrats are now calling for Schumer to step aside. Here's Ro Khanna with Laura Ingraham last night.
Congressman, who should replace Schumer as leader, or a couple of options?
As leader, look, I think there's Chris Murphy, there's Van Hollen, there's Elizabeth Warren, there's Amy Klobuchar. There are a lot of people who can, Cory Booker. But my view is that it should be someone new. Schumer has been there for so many years, and he was effective in the Biden administration. I just don't think that that's the look for the future of the party.
Now, one of the many reasons to reopen the government to fully fund SNAP benefits, which have been delayed in more than a quarter of the states. As you can see here by this map, the Supreme Court yesterday extending an order blocking full SNAP payments. Now, early this morning, a House committee voted to advance the legislation to reopen the government, sending it to the House floor for a full vote in a number of hours, as you mentioned. The bill would fund the government through the end of January and provide some funding for government agencies like the Department of Agriculture, which controls SNAP through September, guys.
Guess what? I'll tell you the tale of bombs that explode in your face. What difference at this point does it make? A Stinger missile from Qatar, you could call it a banger. What difference at this point does it make? The FBI and CIA cover everything up, so what can you say? What difference at this point does it make? But guess what? Guess what? Everything will be okay. Guess what? What day it is? It's on day! Get it on!
What difference at this point does it make?
Klein, no, something strange is happening. So what we're seeing in StreamYard isn't actually playing. So it's actually just a shot of me. It's actually just been a shot of me holding my chin. Ladies and gentlemen, we had a technical error this morning. Let me try and do my level-headed best to hold everything together and pull everything together. So something happened while we were playing what's called the cold open, which is normally a news clip and a meme. And it was a wonderful hump day meme there. At the very least, it was for us in the studio. But as I'm sitting here watching the actual program, like of what's being broadcast on X, it was just kind of me sitting here stroking my chin as I sit here and ponder the day and what we are going to say. Typically, as the cold is playing, I'm watching it, I'm looking through our script and everything. But for some reason, Klein, it just showed me. That's what was being broadcast. Anyway, I'm just acknowledging that. I am very proud that I didn't pick my nose. I'm very proud that I wasn't, I don't know, right? Engaging in some type of embarrassing activity. I don't know what it would be. I sit here and I sip my coffee in my coffee mug is what I do during the cold open as it plays. But nonetheless, Klein, that was a massive glitch. From our end, not that this matters because there's a bunch of stuff to cover today. From our end, the entire show glitched out, so we just kind of restarted the cold. The cold stopped. But Klein and I are in the studio. The cold stopped, and we just restarted it. So I'm checking with all my producers. Get in here, get into the chat, and tell me if everything's chill right now. Was it just me stroking my chin the whole time, watching the call? I apologize. That must have been a very strange experience for you. Producers, let me know. Is everything good? Everything set? Was it just me sitting there like this, reading my script and listening? Okay, all right, and watching the beautiful meme. Maybe we should do that. When the meme's playing, we should just do a picture-in-picture of me watching it with you, because we have a rule on this program, which is that I watch it fresh. I don't get to see it before you do. We watch it together, and I react to it. Hopefully you like it, and I like it. It's something that we do to brighten your morning. We need to brighten our mornings, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it was just a random live with just me, my producers are saying. Okay, very strange. There was a glitch. So from us in the studio, I sit here in the studio with Klein every day. Killer Klein's right over there, a couple feet over there. And for some reason, the cold just stopped and restarted. And so that's what happened for us. And so we were able to watch it. You guys just saw me. Weird. Very weird. Let's make sure we hunt this down and make sure it doesn't happen again. But, like, whatever. Sorry that you all just had to watch me watch the meme and you didn't get to see the meme. Did none of you get to see the cold? Did none of you get to see the cold itself? This is a great cold. And a great meme. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, there's plenty of work to do. And obviously, okay, so then what it looks like is it just restarted for us in StreamYard, and everyone just saw us glitch out. We're gonna have to rewatch everything and see what happened here. Anyway, whatever. Who cares? We love all of you. If you just watched me stroke my chin for 60 seconds, then that's. That is what I'm actually just do. That is what I do all day here in the studio. So maybe we can just start a live stream of me just doing that, reading, stroking my chin, and recording, and let's rock and roll. How do we save the country, ladies and gentlemen? We're going to talk about that today on the program, probably through being able to run a live stream without massive glitches, but we're going to work on that. It is live. In case you're wondering if the show is live, I love everyone else in this industry, but the reality is that most people aren't actually live when they're doing their live show. Most people do pre-records and then run them as though they're live so that they can insert a bunch of ads or like a bunch of little things, and then it takes all the stress off. Then you don't have situations like this, or like yesterday, right? Ed Martin, he's this awesome lawyer from the DOJ. Crash! He's like in the middle of saying something, crash! That's just what happens, right? From his perspective, there's all these data breach walls inside and protections on the Wi-Fi at the DOJ, obviously, because they're getting hacked by China like every single second of every single day, in Russia and Iran. And so that often interferes with a live stream, and it just crashes. It always happens when we're talking about January 6th. It always happens when we're talking about the pipe bomber, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Tuesday, November 12th, 2025, whistleblower emerges from inside of the FBI, talking about the January 6th pipe bomber and a massive cover-up that is occurring right now, that obviously started occurring years ago and is being unwound. Hopefully, we'll talk about that. Also, massive news. The House committee demands Kamala Harris's Secret Service be questioned. A reminder that Kamala Harris's Secret Service brought her to the DNC within feet of the pipe bomb, let her go in, and then when they were notified about the pipe bomb, what did they end up doing? They did exactly what I did this morning. Stroke my chin. They just sat there for 60 seconds and did absolutely nothing. They actually finished their Wawa hoagies. That's what they ended up doing. They like, hey, there's a bomb right there. Oh yeah, sure, bro. Chill out. They let kids walk by, dog walkers walk by, trains go by, and they finished their sandwiches. What the hell is that about exactly? Well, it sounds like we're going to find out. Former Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund joining the program. Thank God this man has so many answers, or at the very least, the right questions. He knows everything that went on that day. Byron Donalds was in Congress that day. We're going to ask him about that, along with a bunch of other things. And Chip Roy will be joining the program from the great state of Texas and Florida, and the Capitol Police Chief in the house today. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Just a reminder that Byron Donalds and I will actually be live together this week, tomorrow, the University of Florida. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be rowdy. We're going to talk to the kids about how we save the country. How do we save the country, in fact? Can you pop up this tweet from this morning? This is something that we've been talking about. And I actually didn't know this. I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of everything that Charlie ever tweeted. And this tweet hit me like a ton of bricks this morning. I want to talk to you about it because I, kind of ranted. I don't like being a doomer. I don't know. Like, let's talk about the energy in the nation right now. Let's talk about the energy in the country because I can feel it and you can feel it. And my wife can feel it. Everyone's kind of like got this like strange. It's like strange energy that's happening right now in the country. The reality is setting in, and that reality is our enemy. The reality is setting in that you can't just stage a revolution overnight. There was a sense of euphoria 1 year ago when President Trump won, not just by a little, but by a lot. President Trump won all 7 swing states, the popular vote, 90% of U.S. counties, if you wouldn't mind. Show them the map. This is why I keep the map in the studio for you to see live, because we actually are we're in a practical studio. It's a real studio, right? We're doing it old-fashioned here. We're literally live, and then we actually built a studio. That's a real thing, right? It's a real map. It's a real flag. It's real books, and it's a real studio. And we really do feel right now that sense in the country that there is a letdown. And this is sort of natural, and it happens with every single election, that you sort of ride off of a high, and then that high has to come down to a crash. If you have little kids, you know that when they get pumped full of sugar at the state fair, there is a massive manic moment and then a crash when reality sets in. And that happens all the time. And I think it is accelerated right now because Charlie was killed. I think that crash hurts more because Charlie's gone. And Charlie was a major access point for the base into the White House, into the mind of Trump, into the administration, and was also someone who wielded a very big stick. Turning Point USA, his audience, the incredible movement that was behind Charlie, his tens of millions of social media followers, those could all be wielded on behalf of the base and what the base wants and what they see as a priority. And Charlie could take that into the administration. Very few can. Very few had that kind of a dial-up and that kind of a seismic meter that they measure earthquakes in. Charlie had one of those for the MAGA base. And what happens in D.C., and I've seen it happen because I've lived in D.C. and I've been doing this for 25 years. What happens is you get to D.C. and the sand gets chucked into the gears and it grinds everything, all of your dreams and everything that you wanted, all the positive momentum, it grinds to a halt. You've seen that in the government shutdown. And you lose track. You start focusing on DC priorities instead of the priorities of the American people. It's completely natural. DC is designed this way. If I could maybe change one thing about America's founding, I'd change so much actually about America's founding. Here's one of the things I'd put as like a major priority. I would not have a capital city. I would, like, the entire promise of America was that they dilute and fraction power. Maybe the legislature would have to meet, but they should meet in Kansas. And the Department of Energy should be in Texas. And the Department of War should be in, like, upstate New York, right? And the Department of Natural Resources should be in California. There should not be one centralized federal city. That's insane. And I've lived there, man, and I just traveled back from there, and I'm going back there again. I'm going to have to constantly go back there again. And I just met with the White House, and I can tell you there is something happens inside of that place. No matter how many good people are in charge, that place, because it is run by the left, because it is run by dark energy, because it's run by demonic forces, and there is a pressure that weighs on you, and it's a force field that manipulates reality. You saw it. You could see people like Elon Musk go there and just completely crash out, right? After living there for just a little bit. After being there for just a little bit, some really good people go nuts and it breaks them. And I'll tell you what, it broke me. I'm like a very different person having moved to Florida. Having moved to a place that is bright and light and filled with Christians and filled with people that are like aligned with God, or at least trying their best, families that are like raising their children. It is a sunken place, that city. And it's designed to manipulate reality and to disconnect you from the base. My advice right now, and I'm not going to go after Trump for one thing or another, but you know what you're watching, obviously, is a little bit of an administration trying to find their footing and trying to reconnect with the MAGA base because they're out of step. And so that is something that falls to us now. We're not Charlie, we never will be. But it's something that falls to us to pick up a piece of the mantle and to carry it forward. That's why I was meeting with the White House for 5 hours on Friday. To like go in and to box the ears and to like demand, to like bang my fists on the table and demand action on certain major priorities. And I got a chill through my skull and bones when I saw this morning. Put it up. Here's the final policy prescription that Charlie Kirk demanded of the federal government, of which he was a massive player in establishing. That Charlie posted this, and 3 weeks later, he was murdered. Was there a connection? I don't know exactly. At this point, I just don't know. Is there a connection? I'll just go out and say it. Yeah, of course there's a connection. Of course there's a connection. Charlie Kirk was murdered because of this. Whether you believe that it's Tyler Robinson just hating Charlie Kirk and his tweaker, furry, transgender boyfriend for what he stood for, and this is what Charlie stands for, or if you believe in a greater and broader conspiracy of evil, which I also believe in, I totally believe in that. Does it mean that there's foreign governments involved and everything like that? Let's let the trial play out, okay? Let's let the trial play out. I'm going to reserve my judgment until I see all the evidence. But does it mean that the forces of evil wanted to stop Charlie and were using what was clearly demonically possessed young men in order to do so? Yes. Yes. There was a broader conspiracy of evil against Charlie, and I believe it happened on a spiritual level. How much of that was played out on a physical level? Let's let the trial happen. But on a spiritual level, the spirits of evil wished to destroy Charlie because of policy prescriptions like this. As far as I know, the final policy prescription of Charlie is right here on screen. This is the social compact breaking down, Charlie says, literally days before he's shot and killed. We need urgency to restore it. Chills. Because I featured this, without knowing that this tweet existed, I featured this data on the show yesterday. We need mass deportations. Stop the H-1B scam. I'll go a step further. H-1Bs should be banned. There should be no H-1Bs in America. Dramatically reduce legal immigration or stop all legal immigration. I agree with that. And chain migration and visa lottery, obviously. Yes, and can be done with a stroke of a pen. Build 10 million homes for Americans, absolutely. Urban containment is a huge problem. We don't have time to talk about it, but it is a massive problem. We're going to speak out against it and crush the college cartels. And he's posting the data we talked about yesterday, estimated percentage of 30-year-olds who are both married and homeowners. 55% in the decade after World War II, down to 10%, 5% today. That is the wholesale destruction of the American dream. That is taking the American dream, ghettoizing it, and killing it. This is the wholesale and total complete destruction of what we all perceive as the American dream. Is StreamYard glitching out for you, Klein? Is that what's happening? It's very strange. Okay, so we apologize. We use it. Put them on. Yeah. Just apologize to the chat. I'll just apologize to the chat on behalf of our entire team here. We use technology called StreamYard. Now, there's a big debate at our company right now as to whether we should switch that technology, but it seems to be glitching out this morning. Obviously, this is now the secondary glitch, and so let me just cruise along here. So that we can get to this critical conversation about the pipe bomber. But you want to talk about a bombshell in our society? Here it is. Why is this so important? And you're going to hear me talk about this, and I'm sorry. And if you're upset about it, or if you don't care, then you're going to have a tough. We love you, but like, you just understand that I am going to be focused on this data, because this was the last thing that Charlie and I were working on together. This was the last. Like, Charlie, I'm not going to be sharing my text messages with Charlie. So is it doing it again? Okay. I'm not going to be sharing my text messages with Charlie, but I'm telling you, this is the final thing that we were working on. Why? If you can't own a home, you can't start a family. If you can't start a family, you can't have children or grandchildren. All available data shows us that that is actually what brings lasting joy and happiness in life. That is what God commands of young men and women. His first commandment is to go out, be fruitful, and multiply. You can't do that in a one-room apartment. You can't do that in a frat house. You can't do that in a group house. You can't do that if you're on a nihilistic renting super cycle into darkness. You can't do that if you're listening to some commentators saying that you don't deserve to live in your hometown. You don't deserve to live across the street from your grandparents' graves in the homes that they built, fought for, bled for, died for in creating this nation. This is the single largest existential crisis, combined and mirrored with all other available data. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the American dream. Charlie saw it clear as day. Charlie and I were working on solving this problem, and Charlie was killed. And so we are going to continue that work. We are going to be talking about it and pushing and using the big stick that we have on this show with millions and millions of subscribers in order to push for policy prescriptions that save this country and save our future. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what it's all about. You are an immoral nation and an immoral generation if you don't leave the country better off for your kids than you found it. And that is something that we have said on this show, and that is the purpose of our show. And so this is us carrying forward that purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, Christian care is something that I do in order to ensure that I care for my children, that I have medical coverage for my children. They have been exceptional. My wife and I have welcomed 4 babies in 4 years into the world. Come on, let's shoot for 5, right? Let's go, baby. Let's see. This is not an announcement. It's just like a statement of my desire. 4 babies in 4 years. And MediShare has been there for us every step of the way. Having a kid is very expensive. It shouldn't be. Having a kid is, well, you know, it's a little scary. And that's just the way it's designed. Okay? And MediShare makes it easy. Made it easy for my wife and I. We love this company. It's a Christian company. More than 1 million Americans now are using MediShare as a great option. They've been in business for 30 years. You can save thousands of dollars. We do. Go to MediShare.com/Benny. MediShare.com/Benny. Send a text and you'll get the info that could really help you and your family out. Text the word Benny to 70246. 70246. Ladies and gentlemen, for Christian care. Whew, baby. A lot to be said on that front as well. Don't have the time. Okay. I want to talk to Stephen Sund. Capitol Hill Police Chief Stephen Sund is waiting in the wings. And perhaps this is just the time to talk through very quickly what the whistleblower now effectively is alleging. Obviously, there's the Blaze report. We've covered that. And now Thomas Massie is calling out FBI silence on reported Capitol Police involvement in planting the January 6th pipe bomb. Okay? Thomas Massie is questioning the Trump administration's silence on allegations that U.S. Capitol Police planted pipe bombs discovered near the Capitol. Massie weighed in on the report, claiming that the FBI, CIA, and Capitol Police are implicated in the story, and he continues to denounce leading figures in the Trump administration like Patel, Pam Bondi, and John Ratcliffe, saying it's been 3 days and still no response. Thomas Massie has come out with whistleblower evidence here. Thomas Massie obviously frustrated with all of this, saying, based on my questioning of witnesses, reporting of Steve Baker and others, and this new 11-page whistleblower disclosure, I believe management of the FBI has been covering up or has grossly incompetent. Revelations about the pipe bomb investigation require answers. So here is the post that he put up. The Honorable Thomas Massie, it says, this is a protected disclosure by an FBI employee, United States Congress, related to gross misconduct. So it says, pursuant to the whistleblower protections, please accept the following as a protected disclosure from a specific FBI agent. This agent believes that there was gross misconduct or fraud on January 6th Capitol Police pipe bombing case, providing the information to show that the FBI agents came within yards of the person who has been identified as the likely pipe bomber. The FBI surveillance team agents were ordered to cease their investigation, denied permission to conduct at least one logical interview, and immediately removed from surveillance assigned to do General Lead's work. Okay. So what Thomas Massie is providing here is an excuse me, an FBI whistleblower disclosure saying that effectively, and something that we've covered on this program, that there was a muscular attempt to stop FBI agents from actually investigating the J6 pipe bomber. That is demonstrably true. That is absolutely true. What is the rest of the 11-page disclosure? I don't know. It's not copied here. That's protected. But we do know somebody who knows so much about this, and it is Capitol Police Chief, former Stephen Sund, who joins the program live right now. Hey, how we doing, man? I apologize for the late start here. We had a little technical error at the beginning of the show. Thank you very much for joining our program. And I wonder, like, just in the aggregate, Stephen, what do you see as the most likely scenario now for the pipe bomber as a operation, as a MAGA terrorist, as somebody who is working with the Capitol Police or for the Capitol Police? Do you have any further insights into all of the available evidence that is now out in the public?
Got a lot of stuff in that question there, Benny. And thank you very much for having me on this morning. No problem with the late start. When you talk about it being an operation, there's no doubt in my mind it's an operation. You look at the two pipe bombs, they're identical in construction. They're placed specifically, I think, for them to be identified and located ahead of time, to be a distraction, to divert my resources away from the Capitol at the most strategic time that we need them. There's nobody that wants to see this pipe bomber identified more than me. The timing couldn't have been worse for the impact it had on my security posture on the Hill. So I absolutely think it's an operation. Who's behind it? That's, still wait to be seen. I've seen, Steve Baker's report. I've seen the Tom Massie front cover letter that you just went over. For me, what this screams is what everybody's been saying. We want answers. We just would like to hear some answers. I'm not here to, as a Capitol Police Chief, and you know me, Benny, I've always talked from fact. If I know information, I'm going to provide it to you. People want to know, you've identified somebody. It seems like it'd be fairly easy to come out and say, hey, this is the evidence that we have to support it. This is the evidence we have to refute it. Let's, take care of that and let's move on. And it gets concerning. It's just taking too long to do that. So I think, the more you wait, the longer people wait for answers, the more they fill those gaps with things in their head with, what's the operation? Who's doing it? Why was it planned?
Yes. So, okay, this is very interesting. Can you please talk me through the construction of these pipe bombs? Were they actual operable bombs? You started your statement here by saying they weren't.
Oh, I don't think I started my statement saying they weren't operable. I started my statement saying they were, I think, designed specifically to be detected. So when you look at them,
So, okay, so yeah, please explain what does that mean?
Yeah. So the analysis I've seen, one, they're built to be pipe bombs. You had pipe bombs going to have the cylinder, the carrying device, which was a galvanized steel pipe, which is often used in pipe bombs. The two end caps screwed on. You've got the wiring. You've got there you go. You've got the timing device. Was the timing device properly set? It's everything for someone to look at it. It screams pipe bomb. It had not a full. Usually pipe bombs to be fully, if you want the most bang for the buck, sorry my terminology, you pack it with the black powder, and then you put the end caps on very carefully. This didn't seem to be packed with black powder. From what I understand the analysis, it had enough so a canine, something would trigger on it. So I think it was there specifically to be detected. I don't know, of what the viability of just how much of lethality it have if it actually exploded, but it was built, it was designed to work. If there was, I believe somebody's talked about there being a problem with the timer. Again, I've overseen bomb squads. I've never been a tech. I've never gone to Huntsville and been certified myself. But it has all the markings of a pipe bomb, something to distract and cause resources to be pulled to it. So absolutely.
So your contention is that it was designed in order to overtly scream, this is a bomb, find me, and then placed. Obviously, this isn't hiding. Whoever's putting this somewhere isn't hiding. This is the photo of the one behind the RNC. Mm-hmm. And this is in no way hiding. You could have hit it under the rat trap. You could have hit it behind the garbage bin. You could have put it behind the fencing there. This is placed just directly on the ground. The reason the timer is so strange, and the reason why people are saying, some have come on this program like Julie Kelly to talk about the inoperability of them, is that how does a pipe bomb get set on July 5th with a 60-minute timer to go off on January 6th at noon? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Again, that's some of the questions that people are looking to have answered. Was it actually set there and placed on the 5th? These are things that people want to know. You have the video of somebody walking around, somebody out there, scoping it, putting them down. People have said, well, maybe they came back and actually put them in place in the 6th with the timer. I agree. It's a very rudimentary timing system. The max amount of time it's going to give you is 60 minutes.
60 minutes.
Now that you've looked at
how's that?
Yeah. How do you do that on the 5th? So I tend to agree with you. There's still a lot of questions to be answered. But it'd be nice just to start, getting some information.
Since you were the Capitol Police chief at the time, and since you have been very public about saying that you believe that these pipe bombs were placed, whether they're operable or not, they look and have the feel of a bomb. They were designed to clearly signal this is a bomb. You say that they were placed in order to distract your officers and to deplete your resources. Can you explain that?
100% believe that. When you think about it, first pipe bomb is identified at 12:42 p.m. That's 11 minutes before the riot gets out of control on the West Front at 12:53. That couldn't have been a worse timing for that. We had sent resources over there, and it's not just bomb tech resources. We're sending personnel over there to evacuate the buildings, evacuate the RNC, the DNC. We have the Cannon House office building they have a whole side that faces the opening to the alley that now we got to move resources and people out of there because it was occupied. So that's taken a significant amount of resources. And then we have the second pipe bomb that shows up. So as the chief of police, I'm in the command center. I'm seeing one pipe bomb. I'm seeing a second pipe bomb. What's going through my head? When's the third pipe bomb going to show up? We're waiting for a tertiary device to be out there. Anybody in the right mind would be thinking of it. So now we have people searching everywhere across the campus, seeing if we may have something else out there. So again, it's a cascading effect on the resources I have, taking resources, and I had limited resources on the perimeter. 273 officers on my perimeter. That's why I'd asked for National Guard on January 3rd, asked for National Guards repeating on January 6th, because I knew we were being depleted and we knew we were having problems on the West Front.
So when it comes to the theories that are available right now on the internet, based on the Blaze reporting and based on a number of other individuals independently sleuthing, there is a theory that a Capitol Police officer was engaged in the planting of these pipe bombs in a larger overall conspiracy. Can you speak to that? since you clearly know your officers and you know this agency and you were the police chief on that day.
So, I've read the Steve Baker report, gone through it. I've looked at it. Again, he provides some evidence why he believes it's that individual officer. Again, like I said, I try and speak from facts. You'd think that with the information he's providing, we'd be able to get that confirmation this is the person, or they'd be able to quickly come out and refute it. So for me, having been the head of the agency, I don't want to come, it's not my place to come in and say, I'm a pass judgment right up based on a press release or an article from a reporter. I want to see some facts. I want to see some facts from our law enforcement agencies, coming in and saying, hey, we support or we refute this information. This is why,
Yes.
provide the evidence. And I'm not the only one that's saying that. I think the American people deserve it.
I mean, it seems like a very easy thing to do, to just simply rule out certain individuals, simply state that there's no evidence here, or there is a lot of evidence here, but we haven't heard anything. And so what does that tell you?
Well, I agree. You have one individual suspect that's been identified at this point. It seems like it'd be easy to come in and say, hey, based on, with the time of day, where she was, anything like that, you'd be able to provide an alibi and, hey, case closed. Now we're going to focus our resources elsewhere. Right. And I think the longer you wait to get a statement about it, I think the more people begin to think, okay, hey, what's really going on here? So if it is the case and the officer's innocent, they deserve, to be cleared as quickly as possible. And I would like to see some statement come out.
You have provided evidence for someone else who was clearly complicit, either wantonly or through incompetence or malevolence. I'm not sure, and I'd really love to find out Nancy Pelosi's role in January 6th. The evidence that you've provided is right here, pinned to the top of your X feed, that delineates every single time you called Nancy Pelosi for help on that day, and every single denied request from Nancy Pelosi's office. Denied. You would think, with pipe bombs being discovered and a riot at the Capitol and a breach of the Capitol and the National Guard situation, that you would be getting your answers immediately, and you'd be getting your calls picked up. But that wasn't the case. What does that tell you?
To make it even worse, think about it. I'm sitting here in my office at home, kind of where you see my wall behind me. The Capitol Police Board, which is who by law I have to go through to get that permission to bring in any resources, has liaisons sitting right behind me, watching everything I'm seeing up on the command center, up on the screens of the command center. I'm getting repeated denials. So I'm denied on January 3rd. I'm denied twice specifically on January 3rd. The Pentagon offers. So when they say President Trump offered 10,000 troops, I don't know how many offered, but I can tell you for a fact, the Pentagon called my office offering National Guard support. And by law, I had to turn it down because I hadn't been given authorization. And then on January 6th, we come under attack at 12:53. 12:58, I make my first call to Paul Irving, who's the House Sergeant Arms, Speaker of Pelosi's representative. And what I get, I'm going to run it up the chain. Repeatedly denied. 9 more calls, 71 minutes until I'm finally approved. And if anybody doubts that's the case, ask yourself, why did Congress change the law to U.S. 1970 that required me to go through them 11 months later and now gives the chief authorization to make that call on his own? They've admitted the guilt. They just haven't come out and said, sorry, we're sorry what you went through.
I'm going to have 2 other members of Congress on the show today, but I'd love to get your take on this, Chief Sund. Should Nancy Pelosi be investigated? Should she be called in to Barry Loudermilk's committee? Do you have questions you would like to ask her about that day?
I think there's questions that need to be asked. I think the committee knows my questions that I would ask of her if given the opportunity. And yeah, I think as a member of Congress, absolutely she should answer questions. What concerns me is you look at the original January 6th Select Committee. Benny Thompson came out and stated specifically Speaker Pelosi's cell phones and testimony is off limits. If you want to do a full investigation, why are you going to make the Speaker of the House off limits? That's concerning. So I would honestly think that you'd want to bring in somebody like that to have them answer questions.
If you don't mind, would you elucidate for our audience? What would you ask Nancy Pelosi?
Well, a couple of key things. One, I'm calling her representative to the Capitol Police Board, Paul Irving. Did Paul Irving talk to her? How many times did he talk to her? Did he talk to her chief of staff? Did he talk to some of her senior advisors? What information was getting to her, and why couldn't I get an answer? That'd be number one. What information, what intelligence had she been given in advance of January 6th? There's now indisputable fact that General Mark Milley had been regularly in contact with Speaker Pelosi. What information did Mark Milley provide Speaker Pelosi in advance? These are some questions that I'd love to know the answer to.
Final question for you, Chief Sund. This is also breaking news out of the committee demanding that Kamala Harris's Secret Service come in and answer questions about their behavior that day, which has struck many as exceedingly odd. Now, we have the clips and we have the footage, so we'll pop it up. But it's very strange that Kamala Harris's Secret Service, after being notified that there was a pipe bomb within feet of Kamala Harris, didn't do anything. In fact, they finished their lunches in their cars. They allowed children to walk by. They allowed man walking his dog, trains to run. It's very peculiar behavior for a Secret Service to allow these kind of things to have. There was no urgency at all. It's very strange. Do you have any explanation for this as to why they would be so nonchalant?
Yeah, so I must agree with you. It is very, very concerning. So before I became Capitol Police Chief, I was with DC Police for a little over 25 years, and I ran the special operation for 5 of those years. The marked MPD car that you see there was one of, those were my officers. I've handled hundreds of suspicious packages. I've handled hundreds of presidential details, either POTUS, vice POTUS, and I can tell you that response is very concerning. I'd love to know, one, what did the individual say to the officer? Because you see him walk up to the side of the marked police car, say something to the officer. The officer nonchalantly says, "Hey, go around the other side, tell the Secret Service officer, agent." He walks around and tells, "I'd love to hear, did he say, hey, it looks like you guys have a pipe bomb over there?" Because if that's the case, that is way outside of protocol. Immediately, let me tell you, you go, you go to Pucker Factory, you're out there, you're trying to find out what's going on, you're setting up a perimeter, you're pushing people out. It's a set of protocols that go on, and then you find out, is your protectee, where are they in the building? Are they on that side of the building? You move them to protection really quickly. You're not seeing that. You're not seeing no sense of urgency. And that, I agree with you. That is concerning, and that is not how we play and we practice for handling suspicious devices on dignitary details.
Before you go, just in closing, based on the amount of focus on this, new evidence, new whistleblowers, in action, the FBI released 8 minutes of brand new footage and video. Apparently, there's much more video that hasn't been released of the pipe bomber for some inexplicable reason. I don't know why. What is your take? What is your final gut take, sir? Since you've served for decades, correct, in the Capitol Police or in uniformed police, what is your final take? What does your gut say about what was happening that night?
So my gut is, regardless if it's this individual or another, we were 58 months into this since this occurred. We need to hunker down, and we need to, if we got to start this investigation from square one, let's start it from square one. And let's get some answers. You're able to identify so many people across were on the hill, down in the hill that day, and go after them, but you can't find this one person who you seem to have a fair amount of information on. It raised a lot of concerns, and I think the quicker they can get answers, they can alleviate some of these concerns and some of these conspiracy theories that people may be coming up with, or let's just get to the bottom of this. I have a hard time believing we can't identify this person. So hopefully they can, and hopefully this reinvigorates all this attention, Benny. I hope it just reinvigorates the people that need to be doing this investigation to get out there and properly do it.
Yes, we'd love to see it. We'd love to see a lot of things, but this was a particularly evil and dark day, and it'd be nice to close the chapter on what actually happened. Thank God for you. Chief Stephen Sund, you can follow him right here. He's had nearly 100,000 subscribers on X. He's a man that deserves his pension. He deserves to have an honorable place in the Trump administration. I'm going to advocate for that, Chief, and we'd love to see you back in action. You should be the viceroy of Washington, D.C. in in a new and clean and crisp city, we'd be in favor of that. Godspeed, sir.
Thank you very much, Benny. Godspeed to you too.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with our show glitches, we ain't sleeping on them. We're already in contact with our streaming service that we use here. I don't know. It just is what it is. It's being live on the internet. But you should be sleeping, certainly, beautifully every single night. I use Beam Dream Sleep in order to make sure that after long nights and long days that I am able to get the rest that I need. And lack of sleep is actually one of those things that causes major health problems and psychosis and doesn't allow you to perform daily life duties, certainly doesn't allow you to go seize the American dream. Ladies and gentlemen, you should be dreaming. Beam is something that I take with me on the road. Last week, we got back from like the Auburn speech at 2 a.m. And it's hard when you're all wobbly like that. Baby. Got back to my hotel. I cracked open my Beam and I had just a little hot water. And that's what I drank right before going to bed and put me out ready to go. Shopbeam.com/Benny Show. Use Benny Show and get up to 50% off using Beam Cyber Sale. You can grab Dream for $32. And there's absolutely no catch. It's $1 a night for the best sleep of your life. Shopbeam.com/Benny. Try Beam today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, don't be sleeping on our next guest. The great Byron Donalds joins the show right now. Byron, what's up, man? We were, like I saw you on the booking schedule today. I'm like, yo, we're just going to be live tomorrow night, but we can rock and roll today. There's a lot going on in Washington, D.C. Are the Democrats going to open up the House, open up the government, or what's going on?
Look, Republicans are going to take care of that. Now that the Senate's done, we're going to take the ball, get this thing back open. I mean, I would anticipate probably 5 or maybe 10 Democrats will vote with us, but we're going to get this done today.
Done today. So the government reopens today. That bill goes to the president.
That's right. That's the plan.
Yeah. Okay. Hakeem Jeffries out screaming that he ain't going to let it happen because he wants to give illegals Obamacare. Is there any chance of that actually sticking?
No, I mean, that's just Hakeem just running his mouth. Listen, this whole thing has been really sad. We're 41, 42 days into a shutdown. Flights are being canceled. People are not getting SNAP and WIC benefits. Soldiers haven't been paid, all because the Democrats are trying to prove that they're tough. And that's really what's sad. And look, this whole thing about healthcare, I know that, there are some who are saying, well, Byron, let's not get into healthcare discussions. No, we got to get into it. Healthcare premiums in this country have gone through the roof because of the Democrats' healthcare plan. And I'll say it again. It is their healthcare plan, because that's the one that's federal law now, that has led to premiums going through the roof, deductibles going through the roof. People are having to choose between paying their rent and paying for insurance. That's crazy. And that is pushing downward pressure on young kids just getting out of college, trying to get ahead in America, putting pressure on sole proprietors, people on 1099s who don't work at a Wells Fargo. They don't work at an AT&T where they have large group health insurance plans to cover them. These people are struggling. And what's the Democrat solution? More subsidies to just cover up what's already happening. And look, there's people out there who are saying right now, even with these subsidies, it still won't actually drive down the cost of health insurance because the costs are out of control, because Obamacare was never about affordability. It was about control of the health insurance markets and sending billions of dollars to health insurance companies.
You say you want to get into it, so let's talk about one of the biggest critical failures of my lifetime that I've ever seen. It's like maybe one of the saddest days ever to be a Republican was John McCain's little thumbs down situation. Yeah. But also Republicans didn't really have a great plan. There are many senators have been on our show saying, like we were trying to make something happen, but we really didn't have a really smart strategy for how that was going to work. Probably would have been better than Obamacare, but what should Republicans do to actually fix this? Is it fixable?
It is fixable. I think first it's about health savings accounts. I think the president was going down this line saying, let's just give the dollars directly to people so they can go and purchase from health insurance companies. Look, If you look at any segment of our economy where people have the money to make their own purchasing decisions, those prices are actually rising less than the rate of inflation. Prices in those industries are actually down. But when you have massive government subsidies, the prices always go through the roof. And that's the problem in our healthcare system. So it's about patient-centered health insurance where people are actually buying the plans that they need, not the plans that Washington says that they're going to get. I think there is major room for catastrophic healthcare plans. Look, if you're under the age of 45, you don't really need major you don't really need major gold-plated health insurance. What you need is a low-cost plan where you can go do visits and get some routine testing, and then you need a catastrophic plan in case something major happens and you have ability to pay a deductible and take care of that. But these bronze plans that are $2,000 a month, that's crazy, Benny. But that's what's happening across America. I think the bedrock of what Republicans should do is that we should start with catastrophic, start with people being able to actually buy these plans directly. If you have to give them the dollars to do that, let's do that, because in Florida, we're doing that when it comes to education. We actually are getting out of the business of sending the money to the school districts and then telling parents that's where you send your kids to go to school. That's what school choice and parental empowerment is all about. It's about giving parents the purchasing power to make educational decisions. And we need to do the same thing in healthcare. Give people the purchasing power so they can make healthcare decisions. And then you'll have a marketplace that I believe you'll actually see premiums come down, because people will be buying what they are looking for as opposed to buying what they were told to buy, whether it's a bronze plan or a silver plan or a gold plan.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up such a great point there that like young people really aren't focused that much on healthcare. It is actually an older generation coded issue. Young people are really focused on housing. They want to get started with the American dream. Of course, you can't bring your new bride home to the group house or the frat house. You don't want to raise a family in a one-room apartment. You don't want to raise kids with 100 strangers in a building, nihilistically renting. This is the inability for young people to buy homes is robbing us of the American dream. Here's some data that is just crippling for me to see, and it's the last piece of data that Charlie Kirk actually posted on this issue days before he died, saying that the American dream has been stolen from young people.
Yeah.
And that young people just aren't able to buy homes or get families started. Now, you talk about giveaways to the college cartel and to universities. The federal government's very much in the business of that, of pushing trillions of dollars of student loans and trillions of dollars to university, but does virtually nothing for housing and for encouraging of young people to get started with housing. This is a crisis. I'm going over solutions with a lot of different parties, but I wanted to talk with you about it. Maybe on a federal level, national level, and then on a Florida level. How would you approach first-time home buying and incentivizing it?
Well, look, when it comes to first-time home buying, my solutions are, number one, the cost of permitting to build these homes. We have to build a lot of homes in our country. The solution is not rent control. That's the Democrat playbook. It doesn't work. It only leads to higher prices for everybody. You have to break down the regulatory burden to procure raw materials, to actually build housing. On the federal level, there needs to be NEPA reform to make it easier to build these homes. Two, the regulatory framework about making houses green has only driven up the cost of construction, which drives up the cost of these homes, making it harder for young people to get them, or people on the lower end or the middle end of our economic spectrum to be able to acquire these homes. That's very destructive. Three, on the local level, this is one of the things in my campaign for governor, we are going to overhaul permitting and planning in our state. It can't take you 2 years to put a shovel in the ground to build a home, because that dead time of permitting and government bureaucracy, all that does is add to the cost of building the housing. Four, you got to have parts of any state in the country where you do have some dense housing. That's your entry-level housing, helps people get in the game. You do have to find ways to do that. And I think that when you have people who are saying no more growth, no more construction, what you actually are doing is you're driving up the cost for young people trying to get in the game. But let me get off housing and let me get to something that's really important for young people. Let's talk about jobs. Our K-12 system has failed our young people. If you look at mastery in mathematics, mastery in writing, mastery in reading, Our young people are not graduating high school being economically viable. They are not being prepared in the K-12 system. This is one of the reasons why I support school choice so vehemently, because they're not being prepared in the K-12 system for the economy to come. And then they're coming out and they're graduating and they're wondering why. How come I'm not getting this job? How come I'm not making more money to be able to get in the game on the American dream? We have all the talent, Benny, in America, all the talent we could possibly need. One of our core problems is our educational establishment, teachers unions, bureaucrats. They have failed a generation of young people, and they're not just prepared. We have the talent, but they've never been trained to be able to do these things. And it's creating a major issue. You couple that with the visa problems that we have. H-1Bs, those are a scam. Those have got to go. Diversity lotteries, I've been opposed to those things for 15 years. Chain migration, it's got to go too. So many of these things have actually been set up by Democrats who want open borders, by corporations that want cheap labor, and it has fallen on young people in America. And it's got to change. It's got to stop.
So this is a great subject matter that you brought up here, because all throughout my timeline is President Trump saying that we need more H-1Bs or more skilled labor brought into the country because we don't have the talent here. What's your take on that? That was from Laura Ingraham last night.
Look, my take is that we have the talent, but the talent hasn't been trained right in our education system. We have a K-12 education system that does not prioritize mastery of core subject matter.
Like apprenticeships inside of industries, HVAC,
exactly.
Plumbing, roofing,
yes.
All of it.
Yes.
Okay.
But that, and then it's also, if you go to talk to the colleges and universities, and I got my bone to pick with them too, but one of the big issues they're having to do is remediate our high school students to get them prepared for college algebra. So if you're coming in freshman year of college and you're having to go sit in college algebra to be remediated, how is that same student going to be prepared to do engineering math, to design the chips, design the weapon systems, the drone technologies, AI, quantum computing, and all the stuff that America does need to get done to get into the game? So you have young Americans being caught in this lurch where they have a piece of paper from a four-year university, and that piece of paper is not meeting up with the economic reality in America today. And that's why what the president said last night, I think the way I look at it is it's a failure of education first and foremost, and then it is a failure of the current immigration system, which needed to be overhauled 30 years ago, that Senate Democrats and House Democrats do not want to do, because they want wide open borders to change the demographics of this nation from a political perspective. And I want to stress that. That's a reality we're facing. And now young people are caught in the lurch. So we got multiple issues here we got to fix. Benny, this is one of the reasons I support ending the filibuster. It wasn't even about the shutdown anymore, which is going to end today. It's not about that. What it's about are energy reforms we need, housing reforms that we need, spending reforms, so we're not blowing out budgets here on Capitol Hill, which are decreasing the purchasing power of every American, making things more expensive. And then our educational systems, K-12, have not prepared our young people. Now, in Florida, we're going to reverse that trend. I want to see mastery for every one of our kids in core subject matter when they graduate high school. So when they walk that stage with their high school diploma, they're economically viable, whether that's going to university or that's going directly into the workforce, having a trade that puts real money on the table so they can buy that home, put food on the table, and raise a family and live out the American dream.
This seems like such a smart tact, because to say that Americans aren't talented enough, we put a dude on the moon, right? Like, it was we created space travel, flight. Like that's empirically and untrue. Right? Actually, there's tons of talent in this country. There are certainly failures of systems in order to meet and match the moment. But the solution to that shouldn't be infinity third world foreign migration, right?
I totally agree with that.
To replace American jobs, with what is effectively indentured servitude in the H-1B program. Go talk to anybody in Silicon Valley, they'll tell you. It's just a scam. It's a scam in order to abuse workers for cheap labor.
No, the H-1B system is a complete scam. It is. We now know that to be the case. What we have to also look at the entire immigration visa framework. We have like 56 visas. They all need a complete overhaul. We do like chain migration needs to go. Like I remember back, Benny, 15 years ago when I started learning about immigration, one of my main points was we actually need to end it and get back to a quota system and immigration in the United States. Look, there is a place for legal immigration in our country. There is a place for it, but it can't be to the detriment of America's workers and America's young people coming into the workforce. And that's what's happened in American immigration. It does need a complete overhaul. Scams like H-1B need to end. But that's where we are today. The fixes, how do you get it done? You need 60 votes in the Senate. Are Senate Democrats going to get to these real reforms that are going to impact not just the quality of life of young people, but helping them to get in the game on achieving and living out the American dream? Like my son is 22, Benny, my oldest son. I'm not talking about this as some guy on Capitol Hill. I'm watching it in real time. My oldest son is 22. My youngest son is 14. My middle one's 18. I'm thinking about their futures too. We have real solutions, but we got to get real. The Senate filibuster is not going to help us get there. It's time to get real agenda items done for the American people.
Okay, so filibuster goes away. Let's take a hypothetical here. Filibuster goes away, and I see there's a lot of bickering online about what should be happening with our immigration system, H-1B system. Where would you set legal immigration caps? Where would you want to see H-1B visa reform? Like, what would be your approach to H-1B visa reform and legal immigration caps? Obviously, I think everyone agrees we must close the border, and illegal immigration should be zero. Deportations of all criminal aliens here in this country, I think we can all agree on that, right? So then how would you approach the legal immigration and visa program?
H-1Bs need to go away. They need to end. That's number one.
Completely.
Number two, the going to quotas is absolutely what we need to do. We should look at every country in the world and say, we need 500, we need 1,000, or whatever the case might be. One of the bills that I've filed in previous Congresses, we're going to file it again this Congress, is creating a biometric exit system. The 9/11 Commission, actually, in their report, they said that the United States needs a biometric entry and exit system in visas. We created the entry system. We never created the exit system. So how does the United States even know when somebody who's here on a 3-year visa, a 5-year visa, a 6 months visa, how do we even know when they leave? The truth is we don't. So I think you have to have a quota system coupled with a biometric exit system. So let's take China, let's take Japan, for example. If we give Japan 2,000 visas per year, and then through our biometric exit system, we see that only 700 Japanese returned. We're not going to give you 2,000 the next year. Now you get 1,300, or because you only 700 went. Now you only get the 1,300. You get the difference because those countries have to help us make sure their foreign nationals go back home. I think that's how you set legal immigration into the future. Birthright citizenship, I've always been opposed to it. I think birthright citizenship really is an anathema to the 14th Amendment and to Black slaves, because Black slaves are the ones who truly were here through no fault of their own. The 14th was so that Black slaves could have citizenship in the United States, and we don't need to go down the history on that one. And so birthright citizenship is something that's never really been passed by Congress, It's an interpretation that's just been allowed to persist. So you got to end that one. One of your parents has to be a citizen in order for you to have quote unquote birthright citizenship. Benny, if my wife was pregnant and we were traveling and our kid was born in, let's say, France, the light went out, it's fine. And let's say that our child was born in France, our child wouldn't be a French citizen. They would be a U.S. citizen. France wouldn't recognize that. So those are the things that we have to do there. But it's that and so much more. Guest worker, there needs to be real reforms in guest worker visas. Are there some seasonal workers that we need in the country? Yes. But there has to be a process where they come in, they do the job, and they go back home. It can't be what we have, where people just come, they overstay their visas, which before Joe Biden let in 15 million illegals, it was visa overstays were the number one reason for illegal immigration in the United States of America. So the immigration process has to be completely overhauled top to bottom. Those are some of the solutions. There are many, many more. And then when you do that, you're talking about ending the filibuster. Energy policy, we need nuclear power, Benny. We need small modular reactors. We got to get that done. When it comes to procuring raw materials, For housing, we have every ability to do that. We shouldn't even be importing it, but we can't be killing ourselves with a outdated regulatory burden that's not helping the American people. There's so many things that have to be fixed, but the Senate filibuster is an albatross to getting that work done.
Yep. I just want to ask a follow-up on one point that you made, which is to end H-1B.
Yeah.
If you do that, then you're going to have to go to corporate America, Silicon Valley, and you're going to have to explain that. Because there are entire industries, swaths of industries that have obscene profits based on their ability to screw over the Native American worker that is just as talented or more talented for infinity foreign workers that probably actually have no talent, but are here to work for cheap. Right. And can enter numbers onto a ledger, and they subsist. These entire industries subsist off of that model, off of an indentured servitude H-1B model that obviously I view as immoral, actually. But you're going to have to explain that. So you're saying end all H-1B visas. What should happen for people that are currently here on an H-1B visa, and what would your explanation to those industries look like?
Well, I think first, people who are already here, there's going to have to be a clearinghouse process on that, and that's to be determined how that's going to look. I think for the companies, they need to understand that that immigration is for America. It's not for foreign nationals. It is for America and what America needs, what America workers needs, and really for the vitality of the future of our country. And what's really happened in immigration in the last 60 years in America, this is not even a new phenomena. We're just now dealing with all of the issues of the phenomena. But America immigration over the last 60 years has not been about the American people. It has been about cheap labor for corporations, and it's been about radical open borders for Democrats. And it has not actually been to the priority of the American people. So look, we want companies to come here. We want them to thrive. We want them to flourish, but it can't be to the detriment of the American dream and Americans being able to put food on the table.
I mean, that is what the timeline says.
There's nothing else to say, Benny. That's it.
it.
Ain't nothing else to say.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly right. And you have to ask yourself the question, like, who exactly are these policies benefiting? They sure as hell aren't benefiting the American worker, the American family, home prices, food prices, the capacity to know your neighbors or have a shared or harmonious culture, to be able to speak even the same language as your neighbors. Like these are not the things that these policies benefit. J.D. Vance made a lot of news last week, and I was there at the speech at Ole Miss when he said, yeah, I think that maybe we should maybe go back to effectively zero net immigration until we figure things out, until we like cool down as a culture and a society, and let things rest a bit, right? Because there's been such an insane influx, and it's been destabilizing, frankly. To a lot of people.
To Benny, real quick to that point, I understand the thought on that and why the vice president's going down that line. I think that the reason why this is being exacerbated to this degree is because of what Joe Biden allowed and Kamala Harris and the Democratic left allowed the last 4 years. For sure. When you let 15 million people illegally come into the country, it overwhelms every system. It overwhelms hospitals. It overwhelms schools. It overwhelms local budgets. It actually depresses labor. It depresses wages in labor at the bottom end of the economic spectrum, directly impacting poor Americans and Americans who are just working hard to try to make ends meet. It impacts housing, because when you have Democrats in these states who are basically giving governmental money, which is money of the American people, to illegals to put them up in hotels and put them up in apartments, that just raises the cost of housing. So all of these things that have occurred the last 4 years are why we're in this situation now. So I think what we do need is we need a cooling off period. I do agree with that. This is why we have to go to a quota system in immigration. I firmly believe that we have to do that. Got to go to a quota system. These visa programs need reform. The mass deportations part of this has to continue. The criminal aliens got to go. The people who came in the last 4 years, they're going to have to go home too, because in short, there's no more room at the inn. And when you have this amount of people who were artificially dumped into the United States by radical Democrat policy, it puts a strain on every other resource that the American people are trying to fight for as well.
That reflects the MAGA base, man. I got to tell you, like, my timeline is just filled with that sentiment. That's why JD went so viral 2 weeks ago at Ole Miss for making that argument. And he made it in a way that I think really like resonates. He wants a harmonious, safe, and culturally consistent America where you actually know your neighbors and that you can have a high trust society. Yeah. And I think that's that's a moral good that we should want in our nation. And it doesn't happen when you dump 30 million criminal aliens directly into the heart of the country. It's impossible, actually.
Look, I think we can actually get a lot of this stuff done. The question is, are Senate Democrats willing to work on behalf of the American people, or is their strategy about getting Donald Trump? And that's where we are right now in America. Look, I hate to break it to people. Look, I flew out of Miami last night to get back to DC to get here to reopen the government. And I was talking to a couple of the TSA guys, and they go, we were joking about, man, do we got to check your bag in order to get an autograph? And I was like, we could do that, but I got to get this flight so you guys can get paid. And they laughed. They're like, no, go on to the flight. But think about this. We had TSA agents, and I know not everybody likes TSA. They can be a pain in the butt. I don't want to take my shoes off. Stop checking my belt. It's my belt. They're trying to do their job. Let's remember when TSA came into existence, and I got my issue. Everybody's got them, but they're Americans. They're working hard. And then when you have Democrats want to use a government shutdown to prove that they're a bunch of tough guys and they can stand up to Trump, who actually gets hurt in that? Military people, men and women, the contractors around our military, they're not getting paid. They're not getting their stuff done. We're coming up on Thanksgiving, and the Democrats are having a fight about the future of Chuck Schumer. Nobody cares about Chuck Schumer and his leadership. People are about putting food on the table, a roof over their head, and making sure their kids have an ability to chase the American dream. That's what it's always been about, and that's what we got to be focused on going forward.
All right. Everyone should love those answers from Byron Donalds. Byron Donalds, the next governor of the state of Florida, also someone who will be appearing with me and the Turning Point generation at the University of Florida tomorrow night. You can sign up right here. The link is in the description. We'll see you there. Thank you, Byron.
See you, Benny.
Godspeed. Ladies and gentlemen, Byron Donalds sitting there talking about the future of Americans, the future of this nation. You can't have a future of your country unless you are having babies. And that is why we are going to be obsessed with the issue of housing. That's why we're also obsessed with the issue of life. Preborn also is obsessed with the issue of life. This is a spectacular investment in our future. If you believe in life, if you believe that life was given to us by God, and that we are all stamped with the mark of our Creator, that God created us in His own image, unlike all of the rest of the animals and all of the rest of creation, that life is precious, you should consider investing in Preborn. Preborn chooses life. They are able to show young women who are pregnant, potentially scared, an ultrasound that, well, many statistics show will increase exponentially the ability for the woman to make a judgment to keep that child, to not engage in one of society's greatest evils, which is abortion. Then Preborn is with that woman for up to 2 years, providing maternity clothes, diapers, counseling, and so much more. Dial pound 250 to support Preborn. Your gifts, by the way, are tax deductible. Preborn.com/Benny. You can go there to give as well. It's a rated 5-star charity. That's dialing pound 250 and say the word baby. Pound 250, say the word baby to donate to Preborn today. Ladies and gentlemen, back by popular demand, Congressman Chip Roy, running also in the great state of Texas for the Attorney General. Let's rock and roll. Congressman, welcome back to the program. I apologize for the delay here. We had a major technical difficulty at the beginning of the show. It was really embarrassing for me. I just sat there on screen, stroking my chin.
Was that technical difficulty Byron Donalds?
And then Byron had to go based on H-1B visas, something that I'm sure the people of Texas, I mean, I know that you're running for high office in the state of Texas. Since we're talking about it, I mean, I'd love to talk J6 pipe bomber. That's the theme of the show. But why not pivot there? Because I think that this is something that is utterly critical. It's something that hit me this morning like a ton of bricks when I saw this tweet from Charlie talking about the inability for Americans to buy homes. This is a generational betrayal. The dream of home ownership and a functional society has collapsed in one generation since the greatest generation in World War II, and it's something that we got to fix. Charlie's solution, obviously, is mass deportations and ending H-1B scams, among other things. What's your take on this, Congressman?
Well, first of all, I did listen to virtually all of Byron's interview, and there's a reason that I've endorsed him for governor. We agree. We are great friends. We work together in the House Freedom Caucus. We are aligned philosophically on a lot of these issues. So I agree with much of what he said. But what I would just add is, as you know, in Texas, we've been dealing with the brunt of the illegal immigration influence. But now we're seeing, I think, the ramifications of the H-1B system and how it has been abused, in addition to chain migration and diversity visas, which we've been trying to fix for a long time. And we've been unable to do so. You'll remember back in 2018 with the various bills that were being debated in President Trump's first term. And we were unable to get that resolved as Republicans. And it left it both broken with respect to the illegal immigration system. We didn't get the wall fully built. We didn't get fixes to all of the asylum problems and the abuse of parole and the catch and release. But we also didn't address ending the chain migration and diversity visas. We had language to do it. We just couldn't get the votes. So now, what are we dealing with in Texas? We're dealing with a massive Islamism problem. We're dealing with a massive problem of the advancement of Sharia law. We're dealing with a mass community that is growing up that have no desire to assimilate and come here to become American and embrace Western civilization, embrace our Constitution, embrace our values. We've allowed the corporatists to define our entire national policy. And if I were going to go talk about what Charlie's tweet there was about, that summary, which is exceptionally on point. And as he always was when he was starting from faith, family, the foundational principles, and that encapsulates it very well. You should be able to own a home. You should be able to have Americans getting jobs. And the mass deportation is correct. The ending H-1B visas is correct, etc. But what I would point out here is that we're dealing with a cultural problem about who we are as Americans. Going back a couple of years ago, I was noting 51 million people in this country are foreign born, Benny. That's something like 16 or 17% of the population. Now, that is higher than it's ever been. That is higher than it was in the early 20th century, right, when we had the massive wave coming in. We've got a mass foreign born population, but here's the kicker. It is on the back of, as Byron noted, a failed education system. Not just failing us in terms of skill sets, which is germane to the H-1B question, but failing us in terms of teaching Western civilization, in terms of teaching God, in terms of teaching our values and belief in the Declaration, teaching English, etc. Now where English is a second language, we teach other languages. We don't really teach the Constitution. We don't teach Western civilization. America is evil. Apologize for our existence. We don't really get to then even reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? And now we've got the problem where we've imported masses of people, and the people we're importing are often the ones that are churning babies. Our core, Americans who inherited this country aren't having babies. And now we have a demographics problem and we have a cultural problem. And in Texas, that has resulted in Epic City, a big Islamic center in Houston, 300 mosques across the state and growing, more mosques every day getting put in Texas than any other state in the union. Wow. And if we lose Texas, we lose the country. So that was a lot I just dumped on you, but I wanted to go into that different lane beyond just the H-1B tech, business bro problem, because that has led to a massive cultural problem that is something we've got to address. So the answer is yes, end the H-1B system, which is broken. I've got a bill that I'm going to be introducing this week or next. We've had to wait because of the shutdown nonsense. that is a freeze on all immigration. Freeze it until we achieve certain objectives, reforming things like chain migration and diversity and H-1B, ending H-1B, getting birthright citizenship dealt with, ending, for example, Plyler v. Doe, which says that you have to educate illegal alien children. Go down the list of things. For example, my bill that says you got to vet people for their adherence to Sharia law. Why are we importing any human being that is adherent to Sharia law, which is totally contrary to the Constitution and our values in Western civilization? So my point is, we can amend that bill and people can have ideas, but I'm going to introduce a bill as a framework to say, why don't we just freeze immigration entirely until we sort this crap out, until we figure out who's here, why they're here, how many Chinese communists, how many people who are Islamists who want to remake America, how many people that are living on the public dole, that are living on welfare, that are going into the emergency room to get care, that are in our education system getting taxpayer-funded education because the Supreme Court declared it so. Let's pause all that, and that'll actually be the name of the bill, the Pause Act.
Well, you can't run a country like this. I mean, eventually everything will just become Minneapolis, right? When Minneapolis is just no longer Minneapolis. There are major parts of the city that are no-go zones. You can't speak English. There are people who are running for the mayor of Minneapolis waving another country's flag. And there are representatives in Congress, you serve with one from Minneapolis, that is saying that everything they do for Somalia. Well, that's insane, actually. Like, what other country, what, it's a practice in debasement and self-humiliation. Yeah. What country would ever practice that? And what an insult to your people, actually, to heritage Americans, to people who were born here, whose grandparents built this country, fought and died in our war. Veterans Days was yesterday. A lot of veterans in Texas. What an insult to them. And we're seeing this worrying trend, Congressman, since you just talked about the Islamization of Texas, where World War II veterans are coming out and crying on camera and just saying, this ain't the country that I fought for.
Well, the one you're referencing, by the way, you said, what other country would do this? Well, I'll tell you one, the United Kingdom. What other country would do this? France, right? And you just quoted, I think, I saw a video and it was a UK, veteran who had said, what did I fight for? Why did we bleed and die to save this country, England, the United Kingdom, from Nazi Germany, when we're now just turning it over to people that want to destroy it? And, there are places, for example, in Scotland, there are, I think, 85 jurisdictions where you can choose Sharia law or Scottish law. That's not Western civilization. That's not how we do things. And by the way, this is purposeful. Okay. What's happening in New York with Mamdani? It's not just Minneapolis. And by the way, my colleagues are always like, well, you guys should just boot out Ilhan Omar, for a variety of reasons. Great. Fine. But guess what? Those 750 or 800,000 Minnesotans that elect her, they're going to elect somebody else just as crazy, because we've allowed this cultural rot to foment in Minneapolis, Dearborn, Michigan, now in the form of the mayor of New York. We've got it now in Dallas, Houston. In fact, you've got the Muslim Brotherhood and people overseas who, if you ask them in London or Paris, hey, where do we want to go in America or in Western Hemisphere? They'll say Dallas. And Dallas has been the epicenter dating back 25 years. You might remember the Holy Land Foundation case, where this charity, the Holy Land Foundation, was tied directly to terrorism. Thankfully, the DOJ at the time, went after them. But there's still co-conspirators in the Holy Land Foundation case that are a part of CARE, for example, which is why I introduced legislation to take away their C3 status. All of this is related. We finally have people up here that are taking all of this on, willing to talk about it. And frankly, that's, a great tribute to President Trump, who's always willing to get out there and lead on these issues. But we're trying to get out there and point out that we're going to lose our country if we don't address this stuff.
What would be your take as the Attorney General of the state of Texas? I mean, obviously you would be the top law enforcement official of America's fastest growing state. Actually, I'm not sure if it's Texas or Florida, but nonetheless, obviously a landmark state, a state that the entire New York Stock Exchange. So, let me just set the table here. What's happening is that New York is disintegrating based on their own decisions. They're atomizing, and that energy is moving in large part to Dallas. Obviously, you see this. Austin, same thing with Silicon Valley. There's a considerable amount of inflow from Wall Street down to the Miami and eastern seaboard of Florida. And so how do you protect Texas from what happened in New York? Because I think if you went back a generation, the people in New York wouldn't recognize New York today. Obviously, they'd be horrified.
Yeah, you remember these old pictures where you see New York at night with the crosses in the buildings and the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building, right? Yeah. And that was the history of New York. That's what I remember. I remember going to New York for Christmas. I remember the old, Irish, Catholic, Italian, Irish feuds that were kind of friendly feuds. All of this stuff. You think about the old New York Yankees, like baseball team. And like, that's the New York that I remember, not a radical Islamist Marxist. And by the way, that's the connection, which, probably for a different, podcast, but the Islamist Marxist connection, the Red Green Alliance, that's a real problem. And that's actually what we're seeing unfold. In Texas, as Attorney General, first of all, I would continue to use and leverage my relationships in Washington and the administration and in Congress to get legal changes here that we need to do on the immigration side to continue to answer this question. I'm going to fight it hard for the next year in Congress, but we need to continue that fight. So I would continue that work and work with my fellow attorneys general to coordinate that effort, whether it's James Upmeyer down in Florida or whether it's Raul Labrador in Idaho or friends of mine. We would work together to do that. But secondly, in Texas, I would build on the great work that Attorney General Paxton has done in targeting Epic City. But it's not just Epic City, right? We've got to be aggressive, whether it's Deceptive Trade Practices Act, whether it's securities violations. But importantly, probably most importantly, being willing to stand up and call it out and say that you're not going to be able to hide behind the First Amendment and hide behind development and renaming something. Epic City is going to rename it to the Meadow community or whatever they're doing. Call it out. Make sure that people know that. Put pressure on the local officials. And I'm going to say something a little controversial among Republicans. You got to take on the developers and you got to take on the corporatists who are trying to run our communities from corporate boardrooms. Going back to Charlie's point, our nation is great when it starts with God, when it starts with family, community, real relationships. Remember Charlie talking about that. What do you think is most important? You want your kids to walk in safe communities. You want to have real relationships with your neighbors. You want to have more people know Christ. Like, we've got to remember who we are as a people. We are not a nation of corporations. We are not a nation that is supposed to be governed by international groups and organizations, federal bureaucrats, or corporations. We are a people, and we are a people in Texas who needs to reclaim that spirit of being Texan. The great-great-grandfather of mine who was a Texas Ranger, who was battling Comanches in Hayes, Travis, and Blanco County, southwest of Austin. Like, those were the days that you didn't go look around what to do. You had to just go do. And that's who we were. And it came from a deep sense of faith. And yes, we were a melting pot. We had the German community and the Czech community, and you had the Mexican community. And all of that blending came together to form the greatest state and the greatest country in the history of the world. But it was also about assimilation into the American idea. Now you've got people coming here who want to remake America, destroy America as we know it. And we have to recognize that war exists if you want to win it.
Yes. This is why I'm totally in favor of just capping all immigration for probably a generation.
Yeah.
Because of the damage that's been done. And because we need to actually get a beat. And I'm so glad that you have this bill. If you had your team send it to me so that I can support it and come out and start hammering for it. The damage that's been done is incalculable and unquantifiable. And we're seeing sort of the fruits of it. And it's just horrifying. And I don't think they've even begun, right, to actually show us what the final form of all of this is. But the easiest way to stop it, or at the very least to slow it down, would be, mass deportations, and then to just cut off, to just say no, no more, it's full, we're done, right?
And there's one other component to it, right? Yeah. And it gets to a little bit of the fight we've been having on the shutdown, going back to the big, beautiful bill, the healthcare debate. We also have to massively restrict and end the welfare state.
Yes, thank you.
Because what you're doing is you're paying a whole bunch of people
not
to be pushed back into the labor force, not to be able to get back and go to work, which, by the way, is the dignity of living, right? You wake up every day fulfilled when you go and you have purpose. And when you've got a welfare state that is growing and building, at the same time you have mass immigration, you're killing the soul of the average American, particularly young males. And you're then importing people because corporations say, we need labor. Hold on. Fix our immigration system, get people back to trades and then real knowledge, give them energy, get them off the welfare state, get them back in the labor force, and do it quickly. Like, we can do that. And one of the things we did in the big, beautiful bill, which people are saying, oh, it's controversial, you were making some reforms to Medicaid and SNAP. All of those programs still grow. All we did was insert work requirements, make serious reforms that would save money over time, so we could both minimize debt, get people back to work, make those programs more effective, eliminate fraud and abuse. Those were all good things that we did. In addition to the tax policy, it takes time for those things to get back involved in the system. And now we need to be on offense on healthcare. And look, I think we should be. Yesterday in the Rules Committee, about 2 a.m, we were arguing with the Democrats. And I didn't back down when they were trying to like hammer us and say, well, you're going to, these subsidies. Hold on a second. You all broke the system. You all completely destroyed the healthcare system such that now 85% of the revenues for the insurance companies in America come from the federal government. And $35 billion last year alone went for plans that weren't even used by Americans. I could keep going down statistics, but we've destroyed the whole system. We've made it impossible for you, your family, my family, the people that I represent to go to the doctor of his or her choice. Let's turn that on its head. We're the party of patients and doctors. Democrats are the party of federal bureaucrats and insurance companies. You tell me which are more popular. I'm for the patients and doctors. They're for the insurance bureaucrats and enriching them. We can win that argument if we'll go have it. Expansive health savings accounts, more direct primary care, health sharing ministries, MediShare, the ability to go wherever you want to be able to get care and carry it with you because you make it tax advantaged for individuals and businesses to put it into your health savings account. We could do that tomorrow, and we should, by the way, end the filibuster. And by the way, I called on that back in October. On October, I think 20th, I said that we should do that. Why? And I say that with some trepidation because if you open up the filibuster and you drop it to 51, Senate Democrats are going to want to come in and they're going to want to pack the court. They're going to want to make D.C. a state. There's a danger there. But I think they're going to want to do that anyway. Oh, the only reason they didn't before was Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. So I think we should go on offense. Let's go reform the judiciary. Let's pack the court. Let's end the nationwide injunction abuses. Let's go forward and have healthcare freedom. Show the American people what actual conservatism looks like. Expand the health savings accounts. Give them options. Let's do that tomorrow with an agenda that will excite the American people. We're going to freeze H-1Bs. We're going to empower you. We're going to help you get and build and buy homes. We're going to help you be able to afford healthcare. I think we can do all those things on offense if we're willing to do it.
Man, I'm taken aback. Did you just say like Republicans should pack the court? So you're saying like we should just go pack the court? Like with that pendulum, like how quickly does that thing swing? How hard does it swing until it breaks? Right.
Well, I think, and we're going to get some. Let's at least go have the debate. So here's my view. Do you think right now that if Democrats get the trifecta again, do you think they will pack the court and that they will try to make D.C. a state?
I mean, yes, I think so.
We're banking on, we're rolling the dice. I mean, look, that's what happened last time, right? And only Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin stood in the way.
I see the theory. I understand the theory, Congressman. It's just the practice. I wonder about what are the long lasting.
My whole life, Benny, I was a Senate lawyer. I was a Senate chief of staff. I spent 7 years there. I was an enormous advocate of holding the line on 60 because I don't like Washington being able to do things easily. But here's the problem. For 50 years, I'm 53 years old. I've been watching this entire country getting decimated. While we sit around in theory talking about, well, man, the 60, it sure helps us stop some really bad things. But we still got Obamacare shoved down our throat through reconciliation. They still moved the ball with their Inflation Reduction Act to jam through green new scam subsidies. We thankfully pulled some of those back through reconciliation. First time Republicans have ever done anything that bold in my lifetime. But now we got to decide, what are we going to do to go inspire a new generation of Americans? If we don't do it with the filibuster, if we don't do something like that, then we better damn well go use another reconciliation bill and take it for a spin to go make sure we've got policies for home ownership, for healthcare, and make sure that we lead to make this country affordable for the next generation of Americans so they can have babies, so they can populate this country with God-fearing, American-loving people. So one way or the other, we need to get on offense. I will choose either of those routes, and I've given plans and recommendations to my friends in the White House on both of them. But I don't want to sit back and wait, because if we wait, we'll lose next November.
Correct.
And then President Trump is facing impeachment and all sorts of nonsense. The president's instincts are often right. And I haven't always agreed with the president on every single issue, somewhat infamously at times. But the president's instincts are often right. When the president is saying, wait a minute, we shouldn't subsidize insurance companies. Let's give those subsidies to the American people. I go, well, I don't like subsidies, but that political message is correct. If the dollars are going to go, at least make sure I've got it in a savings account and I can go shop. Right. His instincts are right when he said, oh, wait, why are we hanging ourselves with the filibuster? So how about this, Benny? How about we just have a test vote? We will amend the Constitution to declare that the vote threshold is 60 so that we all have to abide by the same rule. And if Democrats all vote for that and send it to the states, maybe we will stand down and then go try to do some policies on reconciliation. But if Democrats won't do that, then let's just go ahead and move forward.
Yeah.
But we should call the question instead of unilaterally disarming.
Then it shows the actual game. You can see the lawyer coming out here. You can see the former Ted Cruz architect of many fun tricks in the Senate that you guys pulled for a long time. And I'd love to see more of that strategy, quite frankly, deployed. The American public and the MAGA base, Congressman, feels like Republicans in Congress have not really delivered. And so it'd be nice to actually see that. I couldn't agree with you more. I'm no parliamentarian. And so I defer to you. And you should defer to Chip Roy. Here's his X account. He has 500,000 subscribers on X. He's running for higher office in Texas. He's been a great congressman and a proud father and a farmer there. Are you a farmer, Chip? Is this your farm?
Well, we have 10 acres, and I grew up on a farm and with cattle and stuff, and that's an old 1940, I think 41 9N tractor, an old Ford, which I grew up with my dad. That's the tractor that we had, and so I just use it to bush hog stuff, but it's good. And look, hey, let me just say one thing on the way out.
Please.
Look, I'm actually proud of a lot of the stuff we've done. We passed the Lake and Riley Act, which will allow states to sue a future, Biden administration to secure the border. The Big Beautiful Bill was a great win. It's difficult with a thin majority. I think we need to do more. I think we need to be here, but we should actually trumpet the wins that we've done because they're really important in backing the president, getting rescissions bills passed, which we've never done before. So let's at least be positive about what we've been able to do. I agree we need to do a lot more.
I just want to win, right? And I'm not trying to be a doomer, but I just talk to all these college kids. And they need some vision casting, and they need people to go to Gen Alpha, Gen Z, and millennials and say, you know what? We have this. This is not a gerontocracy. We're not building a culture of the old, and we're not just going to give lavish royalties to people who've voted for them and regulated them for themselves 100%. Their entire lives, and then 100%. Pulled the ladder up behind them, closed the door, and left you for dead. And that's what young people feel like, Congressman.
Well, and you know what? And I understand it. And they're not wrong to feel that way.
And so that's what I'm advocating for. You're exactly, you're right. There have been accomplishments, and I'm not a doomer. I just want to keep pushing, right, and keep fighting.
We're on the same page, and we've got a lot we've got to do. But I appreciate you, brother, and look, this is why I'm running for Attorney General of Texas. If you lose Texas, you lose America. We need safe streets. We need to secure the border. We need to stop the March of Islam. We've got to stop the corporations from taking over a state. I'm tired of Whataburger being bought up by private equity. Let's go reclaim Texas for Texans.
That's a winning issue right there. Next time, Congressman, Godspeed. Congressman Chip Roy. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the federal government is once again messing with your savings and our economy. They cut rates again. What will they do next? Probably more rate cuts. Last time it wasn't as much as the president wanted. The president has been very angry about the way that the Fed is operating. However, there is something that you can do in order to hedge against the Fed, printing more free money for the American people. That, of course, costs you dearly. You could invest in precious metals. The new Gold IRA guide from Advantage Gold is out for 2025, and it can show you step-by-step how to protect your retirement by moving your IRA, 401k, or TSP into physical gold and silver, real assets that you can hold in your hand. Text Benny to 85545 right now and get a gold IRA guide. Plus, Advantage Gold is offering up to $10,000 in free silver with a qualifying purchase. This is your chance to safeguard your savings and to protect your family and help secure your future. Don't let the Fed gamble with your savings. Text Benny to 85545 today. That's Benny to 85545 today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, very interesting suite of news. I guess we've covered generally with Stephen Sund everything that we wanted to talk about with the DNC, the pipe bomber, the RNC. What's going on there? I don't know, man. I just don't know. I'm not sure. I want to say that everybody has been forthright and forthcoming with us, but I've gotten nothing. I'm not here to crash out on Cash or Dan. I've never been lied to by those guys. And those guys, they're good at what they do. I don't think that they came this far in order to fumble the pipe bomber. But I do believe firmly that they need to come out and say something. I do believe firmly that they have to get out in front of this conversation and to give the American people as much as is possible about this. Or, as Stephen Sund said, just salt the earth, light it all on fire, and start over. Right? Start over. Stephen Sund right here. 3 days and no statement from the FBI and DOJ. You know, sometimes you just gotta sometimes you gotta get out with it. Right? And so that's what we're pushing for on this program, and certainly is something that we'll continue to do. Jasmine Crockett faces probe over conflicting financial disclosures. Oh boy. Jasmine Crockett, man, I'm telling you, she is, I'm telling you, she's going to run for president. We've been telling you. You look over at our show and what we've done. We did a number on Jasmine Crockett. The first time that she didn't yap, Jasmine Crockett, mouth shut, was when we did a full expose on where she comes from, how privileged she is. And the reason why we spent the time and money to go do that, very stressful and breakneck trip, was in order to expose someone who we saw is going to be pushed as a presidential candidate. Jasmine Crockett will run for president, man. I'm telling you. Here's the news this morning. Watchdog Group alleges that Jasmine Crockett, Democrat from Texas, filed inconsistent financial disclosures statements regarding investments in which she violated House rules, federal law, unreported assets exceeding $1,000 in value. The Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust filed the complaint with the Office of Congressional Conduct. Sadly, these kind of things tend to go nowhere. They had AOC dead to rights on a bunch of this stuff. And what happened? Nothing. Literally nothing. Congress never holds themselves accountable. A lot of members of Congress are trading and holding assets that could be considered a conflict of interest, the executive director said to the Daily Signal. When we see members of Congress not taking financial disclosure seriously, we see an ethics problem. Crockett is a former member of the Texas House of Representatives. She also filed financial statements when a candidate to run for office. The financial statements do not match. And so I guess that's what they're pushing for. What will happen next? I'm not exactly sure. I'll just tell you, we'll stay on this story. They will run Jasmine Crockett and AOC. I mean, Trump's saying it's true. They'll run Jasmine Crockett and AOC. Expect them both to announce for president in 2028. 2027 is when they'd be announcing, but expect that to happen. It will happen. President Trump calls into ESPN Stars show. Pat McAfee has a very popular streaming show, right? Does he have technical difficulties like we did today? Who knows? Probably, for sure. But he's an authentic commentator and somebody who has like a real audience for sure. And President Trump called in during the program because it was Veterans Day yesterday. Here we go.
And that's one big ooh-rah! New Marines, Mr. President, just ooh-rah'd the hell out of you there for what you just said about
that's good. Well, we love them. They are a special group indeed.
Mr. President, have you ever done an ooh-rah to a bunch of Marines?
Not the kind that I just heard. I just heard a level of professionalism with the way they did it that I don't think anybody can match it, to be honest. That's very impressive.
Mr. President, why don't you drop one? Mr. President, why don't you drop an ooh-rah real quick?
I will. Hoorah!
Yes. Okay. We love everything about that. Let's pivot away from obviously all the great work that the VA and you all are trying to do for our vets and our military.
You love to see it. You love to see it. Now the libs, I can't believe that this has to happen. You know, it's like wild that this has to happen. Everyone can have Obama on every show. Everyone could have Joe Biden on every show. He didn't go on any shows, but like whenever Joe Biden would appear, everyone would like weep and cry and clap. He's still alive. It's incredible. Pat McAfee had to immediately apologize to his audience for having on President Trump. I hate this timeline. Here we go.
I will like to say, though, for the immediate people that are going to be mad about that happening, as President of the United States, it's Veterans Day. He's the Commander-in-Chief. Obviously, if we have the opportunity to talk to him, we're going to, and he is hilarious.
Fine. Shouldn't have to say it at all, but I also agree. President Trump is, in fact, hilarious. Ladies and gentlemen, if you were watching that, you would most likely be watching it on YouTube. That's where Pat McAfee broadcasts, and that's where he built the core of his audience. Shout out to our YouTube subscribers and to the growing audience that we have there. I view it obviously as critical, the infrastructure of news going forward. I also view Patriot Mobile as critical for the infrastructure of news going forward. Every single choice that we make is an opportunity to stand with freedom. Something as simple as a cell phone service. Here's the truth. Most cellular phone providers don't care about you. They just want your money. Patriot Mobile is different. For over 12 years, they've stood with Americans who believe in faith, family, freedom, and contributing millions of dollars to Christian conservative causes. The best is that Patriot Mobile, you don't have to sacrifice quality or service. Enjoy Patriot Mobile Premium access on U.S. major networks, and you'll enjoy them the same or better as premium coverage on major carriers. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny or call 972-PATRIOT. Use the promo code Benny for a free month of service. Switch today. That's patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT and make the switch today to Patriot Mobile. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for the day. It's been a little glitchy. That's all right. Please make sure that you go check out the the Christmas ornaments that we got. We were doing a photo shoot with them, and so they're actually not in the studio right now. But you can find them here on our website, Make Christmas Great Again. I'm going to hype these every single show, and we have some new ones to be delivered very soon. Make sure that you go snag yours. They are in production right now. The first ornaments shipped yesterday. These are made in the United States of America by veterans and a veteran-owned company. These are, man, it is glitchy, isn't it, Klein? That's crazy. It keeps dropping. Klein is so pissed. They are $5. They're $5. No inflation around here. We can make things in America. We can make funny and interesting and beautiful things in America, and we can ship them directly to you, and we can support American workers and American veterans while we do it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please go pick this up. 2 of the new ones that we've added. We have 12 total ornaments, but the new ones that we've added is Donald Trump waving out of the window here saying Merry Christmas. I freaking love this. And then President Trump's trash truck. Yeah, good one. There you go. Should we have the presents in the trash truck? Whatever. Like, you wouldn't take a present out of the back of a trash truck if Trump was driving it up to your house on Christmas morn? Yeah, you would. Ladies and gentlemen, our verse of the day from Isaiah 26:3. You will keep in perfect peace with those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. Trust in God and be at perfect peace. I know that it is a time of great spiritual awakening. I know there is spikes and crashes. Don't doom. Don't black pill, because in the end, the victory is ours. March until we win. That's what we do on this program. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
Hey! 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 Guess what? Guess what? Whoa! I'll tell you the tale of bombs that explode in your face. What difference at this point does it make? A Stinger missile from Qatar, you could call it a banger. What difference at this point does it make? The FBI and CIA cover everything up, so what can you say? What difference at this point does it make? But guess what? Guess what? Everything will be okay. Guess what? What day it is? It's someday!
What's different at this
The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings. And their dying legacy, media dillweeds. Soon will the Benny Show come to mind. The salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for number one. Show come to mind. The salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for number one. The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest king.